Construction businesses don't fail because of a lack of leads. They fail because of their CRM, or sometimes because of a lack of a CRM. After working with hundreds of construction businesses over the last 8 years, we've found one thing in common that's costing them jobs and ultimately revenue. But that thing doesn't have to. I'm here to show you today how to turn that chaos into clean, consistent sales. My name is Ben Fuller. I'm a sales specialist. I work in CRMs. We have a specialisation here at Modi in the construction industry. And what we do is help construction industry clients lay the foundations for an excellent sales process that can scale. Modi ourselves, we are Pipedrive partners, Monday.com partners, Intercom partners, Just Call partners, PandaDoc partners. We work with a lot of different software vendors. We specialise in the CRM and project management space. We've got more than 700 clients across the region, and we have a deep expertise, as I just mentioned before, in the construction industry itself. Where we come into most businesses is as a specialist CRM and sales technology consultancy. So most of our clients we work with have plenty of work. It's not necessarily the volume of leads coming in. It's really about how they handle those leads and having a process that works to get the most out of those leads. There's no good having hundreds of leads coming in and not cherry picking the best options from those leads to give you maximum revenue and maximum margin. And that's what today is really about. It's about talking about changing systems from what you're doing now to something that's more scalable, that's going to give you more margin and going to give you more revenue. So what is the core of the problem? It really is, at the heart of it, it's many construction industry businesses do not use a modern CRM. And so they'll get a lead from the website or a referral. It'll go into their inbox. They'll punch some numbers into an Excel sheet or maybe some other shared cloud drive system, and it will stay there. And sometimes that's saved locally on a salesperson's hard drive. Sometimes it's saved in the cloud. Usually there's 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 different spreadsheets covering different regions, different lines of business, and it just doesn't really work. The other thing that we see is construction industry businesses using a whole bunch of different tools that are not really strong CRM systems. Like NetSuite, for example, it's got a CRM, but it's not a great CRM. A lot of the services tools that you can see there, Aeroflow, SimPro, ServiceMate, they're not really CRMs. Yes, you can put some data in them, but they're definitely not sales CRMs. And some of the other ones you can see like BuildExact, they're more quoting tools. And so too many construction industry businesses are trying to rely on these systems and thinking they're doing the right thing by their sales team when they're actually doing them a disservice. This is where Pipedrive comes in. Pipedrive is one of the world's leading sales CRMs. It's one of the most installed CRMs on the planet. And it's what Modi recommends for the construction industry. Now, we work with a number of different CRMs, and in the construction industry for sales teams, we believe Pipedrive is the clear choice. And today, we're not going to take a too deep a dive into why that is, but we're going to show you what is possible with a decent sales CRM. So to that point, what is it that modern sales CRMs bring to the table that older systems don't? So first of all, a lot of your sales teams are probably older blokes, maybe 40s, maybe in their 50s, who aren't necessarily tech savvy and really push back against the idea of a CRM. And so they're used to using Excel, for example, right? They're used to using their emails. But as we've just discussed earlier, it's not really where a modern construction business needs to be from a sales perspective. And so the most important thing, apart from anything else to do with the technology, is that the system must be easy to use. The gun sales guys, they must enjoy getting in there and using the CRM. So that top line there, adoption is critical. A single source of truth. So this should be, whether it's for reporting or marketing, all of the data should be in your system and properly segmented, so properly labeled. So at the click of a button, you can identify all of your clients in New South Wales who typically do jobs above $5 million, for argument's sake. Visibility, we've already touched on this. No info should be siloed on local hard drives or in Excel. Transparency, it should be visible to everyone within the business what's being worked on, where the sales guys are at. Visibility and transparency is critical to the success of your CRM, the success of your business, and the success of your sales team. The next couple of points here, activities-based selling. And I'll talk about the next one as well, which is activities-based account management. So these are interrelated because they both use the same feature within Pipedrive, which is activities. And so your industry is built on two things, relationships and dates. The relationships are all of the relationships that you have with the architects, the building designers, the electrical engineers, the plumbing contractors, the developers, and everyone else involved in that ecosystem. And the second part is dates. Tender due date, project start date, project end date, expected delivery date, so on and so forth. All of those dates, right? Pipedrive, and the reason we recommend it, is uniquely suited to handling the two most important aspects of your business, which are relationships and dates, via its activities. And so Pipedrive is known for a couple of things in the industry, right? It's known to be the easiest to use of the major CRMs, which points to that ease of use, that top point up there. And then it's the best of the activities-based CRM. So there's different CRMs with different strengths and weaknesses. Pipedrive is by far the strongest of the activities-based CRMs. And all this comes together to really make sure that those two key aspects of your business, relationships and dates, are well serviced by the CRM. The other thing that for example, a lot of the service industry softwares like Aeroflow and ServiceMate and Simpro, they're brilliant at what they do, but they're not strong from a reporting perspective. And then some of those other bigger softwares, like the big ERP softwares like NetSuite and Procore and stuff like that, and Pronto, they do have good reporting, but it's hard to get that set up and get it consistently working for you. And so something that Pipedrive allows you to do extremely well, and Modi sets up for you, is you want accurate reporting and dashboards. They should be live, as it says there. They should be obviously accurate, always available, and they should bring genuine insight to your business. And so what I'm going to show you now is taking a little bit of a deep dive, but going straight into a reporting dashboard. And we will just have a look at some of the things that are possible. So I'm going to click through a few screens, only spend a few minutes in there. So let's just dive across here, and we're just going to land in one of my demo environments, just over on this screen over here. Okay, so what you're looking at here is Pipedrive. As I said before, it's the easiest to use of the major CRMs. It's a brilliant drag and drop interface. It tells you a lot on this screen. You can see the stages of the pipeline here customized to the construction industry. Now, your stages might look a little bit different to this, right? But that's very easy to do within the system. I can click here and see only my New South Wales projects, for example, only my Victorian projects. I can slice and dice data in here super easy. I'm going to take a little bit of a look now into this particular deal here, and I'm going to show you some of the information that's available inside of here. I'm going to focus in on this stakeholder section, right? So where we are here is we're in a project that we're working on called the Townsville Hospital deal. And what we're doing here is we're trying to track who the stakeholders are. So who's involved in the ecosystem here of this particular project. So we have our architects, we have our main contractors here, 5 of the big players in the market. We've got some subbies that we've added in. We've got the developer here. And then we've got who's the specified supplier. So in this fictitious world here, we're a window manufacturer and distributor, and we manufacture, import and distribute windows. And we're up against one of our competitors here, Luminous View Solutions. And at this stage, we wouldn't have a winner because we're only at the first quote provided stage up here. The main contractor hasn't even been appointed yet. And we wouldn't have a project result at this stage either. But what we're trying to do here, as someone that supplies the construction industry, a window manufacturer, importer, distributor that supplies the construction industry, we're trying to make it easy for our team to paint a picture of the ecosystem here. And we're tracking things like who has been specified into this job, which of our competitors in this case has been specified in. Then we're going to be tracking the winning supplier. We're going to be tracking the project result. So were we specified in and won? No, not in this case. We were not specified in and hopefully we win. We're also tracking who the main contractors are, who the subcontractors are, and when the deal is won or lost, or when the project is won or lost. That all feeds into our reporting. And so when I come across here into our reporting, and I click into my dashboard here, what you're looking at here is the result. This is always live and this is always available. This is a result of the inputs that your sales team will do into the system. And so we'll just cover off some of this stuff here. And we've taken a little bit of a dive straight into like the outputs of the system. But I think that at the end of the day, this is probably the most important thing for people to understand. Few things to understand. One is Pipedrive is super easy to use. This is the result of a system that is easy to use. So we have here our non-cumulative forecast, right, where we're tracking non-cumulative revenue month by month, and the blue here is forecast. The green here is won revenue already. We are in September here, right? This is the same underlying data, but it's cumulative rather than non-cumulative. You can slice and dice these reports any which way you like. We could have a look at this by New South Wales. We could have a look at it by main contractors that we work with, anything that we need to. The number of deals won per month. So this is a goals report. We're trying to close 5 per month, and the value of those deals, we're trying to close 1.25 million per month. As we come down a little bit here, conversion rate report. So how many projects do we need to tip into the top of the funnel, and what is our conversion rate, and therefore what is our output? And you can see here we've won 33 deals so far this year. How long does it take us on average to close a deal? So 111 days. Now we're getting down into the nitty gritty. And remember, in this case, we're a supplier to the construction industry. So how many projects have we been specified in on? 49. How many projects are we quoting that we have not been specified in on? 72. What's our conversion rate over here when we're not spec'd in? 23%. What's our conversion rate when we're spec'd in? 61%. And so you start to see some of the possibilities here around the reporting. As we come down a little bit further, displaced competition. Deals that we've won that we weren't originally specified in, and who was originally specified, which of our competitors was originally specified in to that particular deal. What's our conversion rate by supplier, right? So as said before, we win 61% of the deals when we're spec'd in. What percentage do we win when our competitors are spec'd in? So when Skyline Glass is spec'd in, we only win 10% of the time. Okay, and we're more successful with other competitors. Conversion rate by main contractor, Hanson Yuncken versus Wagner versus McConnell Dow, Civil Plus, Seymour White. And then the outcome when Hanson Yuncken wins the tender, for example, versus how our competitors go when Hanson Yuncken wins the tender, and so on and so forth. And these are just some examples here of the reports that at the click of a button are available to you in the system. To finish off in this area, we've got conversion rate by region. So here you can see US versus Australia, New Zealand versus Europe versus Asia. Conversion rate by market, so oil and gas versus mining, infrastructure, energy, renewals. Now, some of these reports here, they're obviously set up for a demo environment, right? And a Windows supplier is probably not going to be too worried about these particular market-based conversion rate reports here. Conversion rate by opportunity size, however, you can see here we are not successful above $1 million. And maybe what we can do is we can take that information and we can try to make changes and improvements so we start winning some of those bigger jobs. Or maybe our product is not suitable for those bigger jobs, and so we won't quote some of those bigger jobs and we'll stay away from them because we're obviously not winning them anyway. And then finally down the bottom here, conversion rate by sector. Now, what I'd like to emphasize is this is just a taste of some of the reporting that's available based on the inputs that you put into the system. But I thought it's important to show you basically what the output is before we get into some of the nitty-gritty of how you get to this point, I suppose. I want to show you where we're going before we get there. So I'm going to go back into my deck over here now, move on to the next slide. And for those of you who are in a leadership team, on a leadership committee, managing directors, general managers, these are the questions that you should know the answer to. Maybe not off the top of your head, but you should be able to be logged into your CRM and at the click of the button, be able to answer all of these questions in under a minute, basically. So what sales are we currently working on now? If you don't know that at the moment, it probably means that your information is siloed somewhere in Excel on different people's hard drives, on different people's computers. Which jobs will close in the next 30 days? So that type of information feeds into that forecast report, okay? Who are our most important relationships? So we saw their conversion rates for sort of like Hanson Yunkin versus McConnell Dow versus Seymour White, that type of thing. What are our upcoming key dates? So tender due dates, for example, do we know what all of them are? Are we going to be ready for all of that stuff? Project expected start date, project expected end date, all of that type of thing. Are our sales forecasts accurate? Now, we work with a large number of construction industry clients, and the universal answer here is not really, or we don't know. It's very rare that we come across a client who is able to say yes to that question. Now, if they say yes to that question, they're probably not the client for us, right? Maybe if their sales forecasts are accurate, they've already got their systems bedded down and we're not working with them, which is why we probably don't see it. Which lead sources convert best? So this is absolutely critical, right? Is it estimate one? Is it BCI? Is it referrals? Is it trade shows and expos? Is it digital marketing? That type of thing, because it's no longer good enough for construction companies to sit there and wait for the orders to come in. You need to be proactive with your marketing, but to spend the marketing dollars correctly, you need to know which of those lead sources is actually effective, which one is providing you with your biggest bang for your buck. Which companies do we win deals with most often? We've already touched on that a little bit. And what's our conversion rate across different industry segments, like government versus healthcare versus mining versus hospitality and all that type of thing. Recently, we've worked alongside Steph Cusack from Stroud Homes. With her and her team, we've amalgamated more than 40 different Pipedrive accounts into a single instance of Pipedrive. We've optimized their sales and we've given them more clarity around the questions we just spoke to her about. Things like better reporting, more visibility, more transparency. Here's her story.
So we're a franchise building company that specializes in new builds. We were seeking to elevate our sales processes. We wanted to get more into automations between Pipedrive and our custom portal. We already had some great systems, but we wanted to make them more efficient and integrated. We were already using individual Pipedrive accounts throughout the Stroud group, and we had to amalgamate around 40 different accounts into a singular system. All the teams were following our set sales workflow. Some had adapted it to their own processes and needed to be realigned with our centralized approach. And after comprehensive research, we engaged Modi. Setup process was pretty rigorous. We were dealing with 40 different teams and data sets. So there was a significant amount of consultation required to bring everything together. The support from the team at Modi was unparalleled. There were a lot of decisions to be made, but Modi took the time to understand our processes and requirements to ensure we were developing the best system for our company. We feel incredibly confident and have grown the business after moving to the global CRM. It's one of those things, like once you make the change, it's just why didn't this already exist? Why wasn't this the way that we were doing things?
So we've spoken a lot about sort of what you should be doing, and we've also given you a little bit of a glimpse into where, like, you should be getting to, and that is that reporting out of the system, right? Now, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before you get to that point, but this is the 6 strategies that you need to sort of nail so that you can grow your business without it falling apart, without it falling into chaos. And so starting from the top right here, and we'll go through these in a bit more detail in some slides to follow up. But first of all, you have to build a process. So nothing should slip through any gaps. And Pipedrive, with its visual drag and drop interface there, that is the number one thing, right? Your team should enjoy using the systems. And so with that drag and drop interface, the ease of use of Pipedrive, nothing is ever more than a click or 2 away. Your teams will enjoy using the systems. And one of the most important things is not the build of the system, but the humans that use the system. If they don't enjoy it and enjoy getting in there and enjoy using it, they'll never do that. And therefore, it doesn't matter how good the system is, it will never work. The second point here, visibility and transparency. And so we've already sort of shown you some of the reports that are available. We've shown you a pipeline there. We've touched on what it looks like inside of a project. And so visibility and transparency is probably the thing that Pipedrive does just about better than anything else, apart from probably the activities-based selling, the activities-based account management that we spoke about before. But visibility and transparency is a real strength. Automation and time saving. So Pipedrive has a really, really strong automations engine, and you can use that automations engine to make your team far more efficient. And so what you don't want, particularly with people that aren't necessarily fond of systems to begin with, you don't want them to have to go into the system to do a whole bunch of repetitive work. And so that's where Pipedrive's automation engine can come into it. Also integration. So Moti integrates Pipedrive with all of the tools that we saw before. So your NetSuites, your ServiceMates, your Aeroflows, your SimPros, your Procores, your BuildExact, portals like Estimate One, all of that type of stuff. We have already built integrations into all of those systems. So you can plug Pipedrive in as your sales CRM and continue using all of those systems that we looked at before, or whatever else it is that you're using. We also do a lot of deep integrations to Excel, because Excel uniquely is just suited to doing quoting in the construction industry. It is amazing at it. And more than 50% of our clients continue to use Excel from a quoting side of things, and we integrate Pipedrive to Excel. Moving down to the bottom left there, the relationships and dates side of things. I spoke about this before. They're the 2 critical things in the construction industry: building and maintaining relationships, and then those key dates that hit, like tender due date, project start date, project end date. Reporting and dashboards, I've already given you an insight into what that looks like in the system. It is the output of all the hard work of putting the information into the system and the build of the system and everything like that. That's the result that you should have at the end of the day. And then finally, up the top left there, growth and margin engine. I touched on this right at the start, which is that so many construction industry businesses don't run a sales CRM. And what they're doing is they're leaving themselves sort of at the mercy of the prospect that screeches the loudest, I suppose. And instead of choosing the projects because they have all of the choice, because they can see everything and it's all available there for them, instead of being smart and choosing those projects that offer the highest revenue, the best margins, or whatever else it is that's important to you from your business's side of things, they tend to go with things because of timing. It just happens to be the right time where there's a lull in work, and they jump straight into that project, and it might not be the right project for your team and your business because the margin's not quite there, the skill set's slightly different, you need to bring in some external contractors that you wouldn't normally use, and so on and so forth, right? And so by running a proper sales CRM and keeping up those relationships and being aware of dates, you are better able to choose the projects that suit you, and that growth and margin engine begins to build itself. So let's dive in now. We're going to touch on the process side of things. Salespeople, particularly in construction, sometimes sell based on personality, particularly some of the older, more successful sales guys. They, and it's often men, they are very big personalities and they network extremely well, but it's not really repeatable. And as you try to grow and scale your business, you're stuck with those big personalities that don't have a process. They sell through sheer charisma, through sheer strength of personality, and that's not repeatable a lot of the time. Or if it is, those people cost a huge amount of money because they've been there, done that, and they're proven. And so what you want to do is turn your sales process into a repeatable process. Turn those follow-ups into something that's repeatable. And so as we spoke about before, ease of use is absolutely critical. If it's not easy to use, people won't use it. And so when we build a sales CRM, our focus is on ease of use. Follow-up as a repeatable system. And so there's nothing more relieving as a salesperson to know that you're on top of everything and that nothing's slipping through the cracks. And Pipedrive's activities-based selling allows you to very easily stay on top of everything. It's not a burden on you, it's actually a relief. The way I like to describe it is, it's like having every single salesperson, time immemorial, has wanted a PA, a personal assistant, to remind them of all the little things that they should be doing during their sales process or during their sales journey. Pipedrive is that sales PA for you. It is the PA, the personal assistant that every single salesperson has always wanted. You need to call someone in 3 months' time. You mark that down. It takes you 2 seconds to mark it down. When you come in on that particular day in 3 months' time, that activity will be there for you. In fact, you know what? I'm going to jump into the system and I'm just going to show you this right now because I think it's important to be able to understand what I'm talking about and how important activities are inside of Pipedrive and what it brings to the table. So this is our project sales pipeline inside of the system. You can see these little icons on the right-hand side of all of these projects here. So the gray icon indicates future activity. So there's a reminder here for us due in 2 weeks' time to message Viola. Green means due today. So identify key client drivers. So this is a sort of internal task for me. Red is overdue. So in this case, I should have called Sally yesterday. And then the biggest sin that you can make in Pipedrive's eyes is this little orange hazard sign here where there's no activity scheduled against the project or against the deal. And so this screen here is my overview screen. I've got 38 projects I'm currently working on, going from those projects that we're trying to get spec'd in on, those leads where we're engaged on the spec, those where we've qualified the deal where the project is suitable for us and we are suitable for the project. Main contractors here have started calling for the first tenders, right? First tender responses. We've started providing those responses here. Then the main contractor gets appointed, subbies are appointed, finalised pricing. Now, this is our overview screen. As a user in the system though, what I want to do is I want to come across to my activities tab. I click on today and now I can see the 16 activities that past Ben has set future Ben for today. Now, some of these activities were created 3 months ago, some 3 days ago, and some 3 hours ago. I'm going to click into one of these, say this one here, 2 Smith Street Medical Centre. I click into this, and the activity here is to identify clients' key drivers and needs. Okay, so this is an internal activity that I might sit down with my team and do. So I do that. Pipedrive prompts me to set a follow-up activity. I'm going to set the follow-up for Monday, and I'm going to say send images before call. Right, and I'm going to call this client on Monday. I'm going to move the deal maybe into the next stage of the pipeline, and I'm going to update some information here. I've just found out that there's another couple of main contractors who are involved in the tender, so I move that across to there, right? Now you can see that that activity is now struck through, and I move on to the next activity and so on and so forth. And When we talk about activity-based selling or activity-based account management inside of the system, what you saw there, that's as complex as Pipedrive needs to get for most users within the system. It doesn't need to get any harder than that. And this is some of the beauty of the system. Anyway, we're back into the deck now. The system should be enjoyable to use, fast, responsive, intuitive, which is what you just saw there. Every prospect or client gets the same experience. When you have a process bedded down, everyone gets the same experience, and the sales don't live in one person's head. That gun sales guy who closes all of the deals, as you want to scale, that's not good enough. You can't have that process living in his or her head. Also on the process side, in your industry, lead times are extremely long, right? Clients are waiting for finance, clients are waiting for DA approval, clients are waiting for weather, clients are waiting for all sorts of things, right? And so some prospects just need more time, more budget, and you don't want to let that slip through the cracks and not be business that's on top of it and contacting them at the right time. And so every sort of not yet, as it says there, becomes tomorrow's pipeline. And through the use of activities inside of the system, you never let anything at all slip through the cracks. You can also segment things by job type or value or any other metric that you would like. You can set up automated reactivation campaigns if a project or a business or a client or an architect that you might work with has gone cold or they've stopped replying. You can set up a reactivation campaign, send them seasonal offers, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, that type of thing. There's so many options to have a look at your data, see if you can see patterns in the data, and then find new angles and new methods to get the best clients for your business. Moving on to the second item of that flywheel that we looked at before, this is the visibility and transparency side of things. As you saw when I shared screen a couple of times now, Pipedrive is very easy to see everything that's going on. And so what it gives you is a very clear idea on what's in your pipeline, where it's all at, and also through those little icons that we saw before on each project, you can at a glance see if your team is on top of all of that stuff. And so from a visibility and transparency side of things, nothing beats it in that regard. But it's about more than just the pipeline. We've already taken a look at some of those reports inside of the system, and you can see through these dot points here, they focus in on some of those reports, right? How much work is in play, what's going to close this month, which prospects are stalling, so which projects are stalling. We can measure in the number of days and give you to the exact day count on how old a project or how long a project has been sitting there, or how long is it to the day since we've spoken to the stakeholders involved in that project. And so it's bringing that level of transparency. And then from a sort of reporting perspective, how many projects are we working on? Where are they located? Are they spread evenly from a regional perspective? Are we weighted too heavily in one area that's sort of making our overall look good, but we're going to run out of work in New South Wales for argument's sake? All of that type of stuff. So the result of ease of use inside of the system are the sales dashboards that we looked at before. Okay, so having that dashboard, usually multiple dashboards within the system that speak to different use cases or different industries or different regions and things like that, having those dashboards set up, running your account management through Pipedrive using that activities-based account management. So even for those projects that aren't currently in your pipeline, right, there's going to be a lot of architects, a lot of building designers, a lot of electrical contractors, a lot of developers who don't have something on the go at the moment. It's that account management that you should be doing and staying in touch with those people, not waiting for them to reach out to you, but touching base with them, whether it's once a month or once a quarter or once every 6 months or annually, whatever works for you. You should be proactive in touching base with those guys and making sure that those relationships are maintained. The last few points there, we see too many businesses that have so much valuable intellectual property, IP, intellectual property, that is locked up in Excel sheets or people's emails, and then those people leave, and that intellectual property, the value of that intellectual property goes up in smoke. And so you need to have it all in a CRM where there is a central source of truth, where every single architect that you've ever worked with is in there, and the communication you've had with those architects is in there. And when you had that communication, because one day every business will be sold, right? Or most businesses will be sold. And if that time is coming up for you, potentially any time in the next 5 years, any time in the next 10 years, what you need to be doing is building those foundations now to make sure that the intellectual property value of your business is as high as it possibly can be. Automation and time saving. So I think that this is probably an underappreciated aspect of modern CRMs. For those of you who are used to using Excel, and those of you who are used to using old ERP systems like NetSuite and its ilk, modern platforms can do so much from an automations perspective. Automated reminders to follow up on proposals, automated segmentation of data lists, creation of filters, automated sending of emails, autoresponders from your website. So when someone submits a web form on your website, the deal lands in the system and an autoresponder automatically responds to them. And you can make that responder smart. If they're in New South Wales and they've ticked that they're interested in bifold windows, for argument's sake, you can send automatically the response with the attachment PDF featuring all of your bifolds and a link to where to go on your website to see more information about it, with a promise that someone will be back to them as soon as possible. And so it's that type of busy work that I've just outlined there in a few points, where inside of Pipedrive, you can set up these automations, you can set up these reminders, and you can make sure that you're not asking staff to do a whole bunch of repetitive work that stops them getting into the CRM. And this comes back to that ease of use point that I've been talking about a little bit today. Pipedrive is by far, as I said, the easiest to use of the major CRMs. And part of that is down to the strength of its automations engine, which takes some of the burden of repetitive work away from people. And so it can free, as the last point on this slide says, it can free your team up for more important billable work, whatever that might be. Relationships and dates. So this is point number 4 on the flywheel, 6 points on the flywheel. And relationships and dates is the two things that drive your industry, right? The work comes in through relationships, and then the work has to be done, or things have to be completed by a certain date. And so I'm going to dive in and just share screen here for a moment and just show you the importance of relationships and dates inside of the system by looking at tender due date, which is just something that I have set up in the system here. So let's dive in and share screen for a moment. So I'll just wait for that to come up. Now, when we've come in here, we're in our same pipeline, our project sales pipeline. I'm going to go back into my Townsville Hospital deal here. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to come down below the stakeholders, down through here, past my internal stakeholders here, into my key dates section. So you can see in our key date section here, we have date specified, tender due date, project start and end date, and preferred delivery date. Down a bit further, we have a whole bunch of information where we're tracking things like what sector is this job in, it's in the healthcare sector, and so on and so forth. But we're just going to concentrate just for now on these key dates here. So tender due date, let's take that, right? Now, it's all good and fine for this tender due date to be visible as the 31st of January 2026 here inside of the deal, right, inside of the project. But it's not much use if I'm trying to get a big picture macro view of everything that we've got going on, right? I don't want to have to come in and click on every single one of these tender due dates, or click into every single deal or every single project just to see the tender due date. That doesn't do it. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to come back across to my pipeline, and I'm going to come into the forecast view here in Pipedrive. So let's click into the forecast view. On the right, I'm choosing tender due date. Now I can choose any date that exists inside of the system. I'm choosing tender due date, and I'm choosing to see the tender due date by month with 5 columns, so 5 months, right? So across the top here, we have September, October, November, December, and January. Now, we were in that Townsville Hospital deal, and the tender due date, I think, was the 31st of January 2026, which is why it shows up in January 2026 here. Now, I'm going to use this example here, which is, Polar Pan Road. Its current due date is in September. Now, let's just pretend that the can gets kicked down the road a little bit on that particular project, and the tender due date has now been moved out to October. So I'm going to move it out to there, and I'm going to say that it's Friday the 31st of October, okay? Now, when I go into that deal, into that project, I come down here, tender due date, it's updated inside of the project. But importantly, probably more important than that little feature is, at a glance, I can see the tender due date of all of the projects that we have on the go, right? All of the projects that we are involved with the tenders on, you can see the tender due date on every one of those. And as they change and move around, you just then drag and drop and update, and it's all done so quickly and so easily, and it's also visible and it's also transparent. And so this is, I think, another key feature of the system that speaks back to that ease of use, that visibility and transparency. It just really makes a difference when everything is 1 or 2 clicks away, and that ease of use and that transparency is feeding into the ability to maintain those relationships, have those key dates always updated. And so don't let poor systems let things slip through the cracks for you and be the enemy of being one of those on the ball, responsive businesses that does what they say when they say. Okay, let's move across to number 5 here, reporting and dashboards. I'm not going to dive back into the system. I already did this at the beginning to try and paint the picture, to try to set the scene. But you can slice and dice data inside of Pipedrive in just about any way that you wish. And you saw some of the things that I was able to surface there earlier, which is stuff like the ability to be able to understand if one of your competitors has been spec'd into a job. For example, if you're a Windows supplier, like in my fictitious world that I've created, if you're a Windows supplier and Skyline Windows has been spec'd in, I might just let that go, because we very rarely are able to lever them out of that spec. They usually win that job. Maybe they're far cheaper than us, for example, right? Maybe they've got that advantage over us. And so we know when they've been spec'd in, probably not to touch the project. But if we don't have the data for that, then it's all just anecdotal, right? It's just us and our estimators and our sales team sort of going, oh yeah, it doesn't feel like we win too many of those deals with Skyline. Whereas having actual data for it will either confirm or in some cases deny your bias, right? So you can see the things there, conversion rates, which industry segment is responsible for the most revenue for us, which competitors are the biggest thorn in our side, that type of thing. If you don't have these answers to these questions and 20 more questions, like these ones here, right? These are reports that should basically exist for you, forecast reports, goals reports. So the reports that were up the top of the dashboard we looked at before. Sub-segment conversion rate reports. So how do we go in healthcare versus government versus resi versus standard commercial, that type of thing? What are our conversion rates across those industries, and what can be done to improve them? Or maybe we leave an industry alone because we're constantly submitting in that industry, but we're never winning. And there may be a reason for that we're overlooking. Things like deal duration, critical for forecasting. All of those competitor reports that we've been speaking about, the conversion rate stuff by region and margin and sector, conversion rate by opportunity size is critical. Are we winning those deals above $1 million or above 10 million, or are we losing them, or are we not even getting anywhere near them, that type of thing. And then the sub-segment specialty reports, like at what rate are we spec'd in? Are we displacing competitors and how frequently? Conversion rate by spec'd-in supplier, all that type of thing. Now, I know that I'm talking here as if we're a supplier to the construction industry, and a few of you watching are probably builders or in services and trade. We have other systems, other demo accounts that speak to your particular use cases. And if you want us to touch on that with you, just book a call with me and I'm happy to take you through some of the reporting that is more common in your industry, right? Maybe you're a big franchise builder. I can take you through our franchise building demo environment where you can see all of the reporting that you should have. Growth and margin engine. So most of you will have your quoting tools, your scheduling tools, your invoicing tools, your administration stuff, right? A lot of you, we know, do not have a sales CRM. And so you're using Excel as your sales CRM. You might be using a poor sales CRM like NetSuite, for example. You might be trying to use ServiceMate as a sales CRM or SimPro, or maybe it's just your email inbox. A good sales CRM can drive growth, drive business growth, and drive margin. Of course, there's a hell of a lot more complexity to running your business than just implementing a sales CRM. But if the demand is always there and you're always choosing the right projects with the right revenue and the right margin and for suitability and in the right spot when the teams are available, all of that type of stuff, because you've got all of this visibility and all of this transparency into what's available for you to choose from when it comes to these projects, then it's going to be much easier for you to do all of the things that are important to your business. And so when I talk about Pipedrive being your growth and margin engine, that's what I mean. It's about giving you options at the end of the day and allowing you to scale without chaos, as the very first slide said, scale or growth without chaos. And that's what the system will give you. An underappreciated side of things, I think, is people talk about the cost of technology, right? And at the end of the day, the cost of technology is tiny compared to the potential benefits. You just need that technology set up correctly and you need to choose the right technology. And so the right technology will result in revenue growth, cost reduction, because you don't need to do as much admin. You don't need that extra. And this is probably a key point, right? A good salesperson, maybe 150K plus, right? Easily, sometimes 150K plus. A cost reduction of being able to get more out of your existing gun salespeople because they can handle more, because they're staying on top of everything and they're finding it easier and they're not forgetting to do this, or they're remembering to contact that person, can lead to not having to hire yet another salesperson. And the cost of setting up Pipedrive and implementing Pipedrive and running it properly is tiny compared to the cost of hiring yet another salesperson or yet another administrative person to drive all of those repetitive tasks that need to be done in the background that the system can actually do for you. Another key point here is the risk mitigation side of things. So you don't rely on individuals that keep everything in their head or keep everything on their own computer, and no one else can see that. And if they get hit by a bus tomorrow, that IP in the business is gone, or at least very difficult to recover and interpret. And so that risk mitigation side of things, I think, is an underappreciated aspect of the return on investment that you get through technology. All tied into this is the customer experience. So they get faster responses, like often automated responses. Consistent follow-up leads to better relationships, lead to repeat business. None of this, again, is rocket science, but the cost of something like Pipedrive is very cost effective. It's not difficult to set up. It's not difficult to implement. We're not talking 50 or 100K to get something set up. You're talking, generally speaking, less than 20K to get something set up. And you're only paying, let's say, $80 to $100 Australian per user per month, right? So you're not talking big dollars at all in the bigger scheme of a business, and that ROI is definitely there. And as it says down the bottom, this is from an older study a few years ago now, and this is not specific to the construction industry. This is more broadly across all industries, but typically speaking, the ROI on CRM systems is $5.60 for every dollar spent. And that's a pretty good ROI, and that's not taking into account the variance between good and bad systems and well-implemented systems and badly implemented systems. So the ROI on a good system that's well implemented and training is provided and go live is successful, which it will be, is much, much higher than what you're seeing here. On the other side of the ROI coin is the cost of doing nothing. So just doing what you're already doing isn't really good enough, because of the adoption of technology is moving apace. It's increasingly important to be using the best systems inside of your business. The construction industry is lagging many other industries that we see in the marketplace. And so the cost of doing nothing is not nothing. It is significant. And so you can see that the points there, more admin, the revenue continues to leak through cracks in the process. Look, missing out on just one decent sized deal for a business like yours is going to be potentially tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes much bigger numbers, right? And so the cost of doing nothing can be extremely significant. So for those in the leadership positions that are watching this, the managing directors, the general managers, we know that you guys don't necessarily care so much about the buttons and screens and what needs to be done inside of the system, but about the reports that come out of it, the profitability, and you need predictability, right? The construction industry is notoriously unpredictable. And you go through peaks and troughs for all sorts of reasons. And what a decent sales CRM can do is it can bring that profitability, bring more certainty, bring more predictability, and you can have all of that certainty and predictability displayed on a click of a button, beautiful dashboard like what we've been looking at, which is designed for your business and customized for your business. And when you sit down with the board to deliver whatever it is, your monthly report, your quarterly report, you can click in, show that dashboard, talk to those numbers, drill down. I didn't show this, but you can drill down into those dashboards to see what actually sits behind them. It's all there at the click of a button. It's all beautifully presented, and you don't need to spend, and this is probably pretty important, you don't need to spend a whole week preparing everything for that board meeting each quarter. You don't need to do that because it's all there live, and you can interrogate that data at any time. And in preparation and leading up to that board meeting, you will already be familiar with everything because you constantly look at it and check it and understand it. And so all of that preparation and stress and worry when it comes to presenting at the board level is not necessarily going to be there, because the system takes that stress away. And it's probably one of the biggest points. I think no matter whether you're a managing director or a general manager, or even just a salesperson, what Pipedrive I think does better than just about anything else is it takes away the stress of worrying about letting something slip through the cracks. Did I follow up on that big deal? Did we lose it because I didn't make that phone call? And for the managing directors and general managers, that preparation for those big board meetings and the transparency and visibility, and there's nothing worse than trying to prepare for that and not being able to find the numbers that you want, or not even knowing where those numbers might be. And so it's all about that profitability and predictability. If you want to talk further with us, we offer a free sales process mapping workshop. We sit down, we understand your business, we create a tech stack diagram of what you've got currently and where you might need to get to. We will show you what best practice looks like for your business. So it's different for a franchise home builder versus a supplier to the construction industry, like a windows manufacturer, versus a an electrical contractor or a plumbing contractor, that type of thing, right? So we have different demo environments set up for all types of different parts of the construction industry, and we will show you what best practice looks like for you. And then we will take the information that we get from the sales process mapping workshop and present back to you what we think your system will basically look like. We'll try to show you where we think you're leaking revenue based on what you tell us about your current processes. We'll give you some quick wins, so some really simple, super simple stuff that you can get up and running quickly. And that's probably the other point here is we're not talking 3 months, 6 month projects to get up and running. We're talking, generally speaking, 4 to 6 weeks to get something up and running right from start to finish. And so none of this is sort of like on the horizon pipe dream stuff that's never going to actually come to fruition. It's all actionable. It can be actioned now. The final point here, the systems and integration tech stack diagram. So we leave you, even if you don't work with us, we leave you with all the information that we do in this sales process mapping workshop. So you can take all of that away and use it in future somewhere else if you wish. Thank you very much for watching today. I really enjoyed presenting this. If you've got questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon.